We all know that feeling of working really hard on a piece of content, recording the Today, I want to share with you some powerful tips that could transform the results that you're getting on YouTube. We all know that feeling of working hard on a piece of content. You come up with the idea, you record the video, you edit the video, you upload it, add a title and thumbnail, you publish it, and then you don't get the results that you're hoping for. In my case, I've had this feeling before that maybe I just don't have what it takes. And why am I even wasting my time with this? And what I want people to understand from watching my videos, one of my main themes is that people look at this other person who's winning, like getting subscribers, views, and making money, and then compare it to themselves and think the difference between the two is the Grand Canyon, when really the difference between winning and losing on YouTube is this big. So yesterday, I had an in-person YouTube consultation. This channel actually drove quite a long way to come here, record a video with me in person, and, try to learn as much as they could within 1 day's time. And it was a great experience. But one of the things I pointed out to him is I said, when I look at your videos and I look at what you're doing and the way you're publishing them, I would say you're doing 90% of the work for 10% of the result. You're doing all of this stuff. You've bought cameras and you're lugging them around and charging them and clearing SD cards and interrupting your workflow to record and talk to the camera and edit and all of these things. And what you're doing is this close. You just need a little bit of a tweak, and then you need to repeat it over and over again. So let's get specific. In this video, I have a list of things you can do before you even turn the camera on. I said can do. That's not the right word. It's things you should do, things you need to do if you want to win instead of just post. So several of these things are going to sound a little bit like common sense, but the point of this is you're doing 90% of what I'm talking about. You're not doing the last 10% that makes the difference to winning. So we're going to go through several items, and then we're going to get to the number one thing that I think really makes the difference. And I think this one thing could transform the results you're getting. But I'm saving that for the end. And this is a meta example. Why am I saving that till the end? Because I want you to watch till the end. And that's a little thing you should be working into your videos as well. That not only am I saving the best thing, but I'm making it very clear to you that you need this piece of information that's at the end, because viewer retention is so important on YouTube. But also, if you're going to say it, it needs to be true. So stick around. So let's start at the beginning. To record a video, you have to have an idea for a video. So a winning strategy is to constantly be thinking about ideas for videos. And I bet you're already doing that. If you've been posting videos, you go through your life, you've got this pile of logs that needs cut up, and you say, when I go to cut those up, I'm going to record it. You've got some kind of a tool, and you think, at some point, I'll do a review on that tool. And you've got these ideas for videos, but you're only doing 90% of it. You really need to do the last 10% on those ideas. So if you've got a pile of logs that you need to cut up for firewood, as a random example, it could be anything, but if you're going to cut these logs up anyway, what you need to think about is, what is the best video I could possibly make about cutting up these logs? And the way you do that is research. So you're going to bring up YouTube and look at all of the other videos on that topic that got good view counts. And I'm going to search firewood channels, and I'm going to look at these channels and look for their outlier videos. If I find a channel that averages 1,000 views per video, but this video got 20,000 views, say that's an outlier. There's a reason that video got 20 times as many views as the other. Look for trends within video title types. And then you have to cross-reference these types of videos that have won for other people with videos that have done well for you and your skill set and equipment availability. So is there something unique about your process? I don't know. But those are the questions you need to be asking before you turn on the camera. And this is not a situation where I sit down and I'm researching for 12 hours. It's as I go about my day, I'm thinking about different stories I could tell about what I'm going to be doing. And then I'm doing searches and I'm comparing, has anyone else told that story? If they did, how did they tell that story? Can I tell that story better? Do I have something unique to add to it? And then once you find a story, you need to be working on a title and thumbnail in your head before you have ever went outside to record. This might not even be the same day. You might be doing this for a week beforehand, and you might have 3 or 4 video ideas that you're tossing around trying to think of what is the story within the work that I'm doing. And I know this feels like common sense, but let me just show you an example of the difference. Okay, so we've pulled up my channel and I typed the word chainsaw in. And I would ask you kind of a rhetorical question, but how many chainsaw reviews and chainsaw comparison videos are there on YouTube? I would say hundreds of thousands. And I personally am not a firewood channel, really. I'm not a chainsaw channel. I'm not really an expert on chainsaws, but I've personally recorded like 20 chainsaw videos. So if I've done that many, then how many has everyone else put together done? So what I'm saying is it's a crowded niche. And all of the chainsaws that I have access to are things that other people have already recorded videos about multiple times. There's nothing new. Everything is a version of something. But let's take a look at this. What is this video? This is comparing a cheap chainsaw to an expensive chainsaw. And I went dramatic with the way I showed that. Split screen says $1,700 versus $250. And then I went declarative, and I found a repeatable title format with this right here. It says, stop wasting money on chainsaws. So why is that a winning title format? Well, it's kind of in your face, and it's kind of uncomfortable. Do you want anyone telling you, do this or don't do that? Nobody likes that. Now, if you look at the results of that video has 868,000 views, and it made $8,387.72. The video was published a little over a year ago, and it still has 930 views in the last 48 hours. I'm still getting paid for that video a year later because I did the extra 10% to come up with a title that worked. Now, some of this, I know you've heard it before, but I'm just saying it again, and it's not the number one thing for this video. So now let's actually play a little bit of one of these. What I'm hoping to accomplish with a video like this is save you guys some money if you're in the market for a chainsaw that can handle a 25-inch bar. That intro did not waste your time. So in that intro, I came straight to the point. There was no introduction. I didn't say what my name was. I didn't talk about something else or have B-roll. I said, my purpose in this video is to save you money on a chainsaw that will still accomplish this task. And then I immediately showed that we were actually doing a real comparison. So as you started that video, you immediately knew what value I was trying to provide for you. That didn't just accidentally happen. And that's the next thing I want to talk about. So you've come up with a topic, and then you've done a little bit of research, and you've sat around and thought about it. And as you're thinking about it, you're thinking of titles and thumbnails. Like, what could a picture of this look like? And you're planning that ahead of time. And you want to be flexible. It can change as you go through the process, but you want a plan before you start. Now, in this case, I'm thinking I'm reviewing a cheap chainsaw and an expensive chainsaw. What value does that provide to the viewer? What does the viewer care about? And then I said, how quickly can I tell the viewer that I'm going to answer the question that they care about? You'd be amazed how many people don't do that. That they might say that, or they might imply it, or they might think you know it, but they don't actually come right out and say it immediately. So you could do everything else in the video exactly like I did, but you didn't start the video that way, and that could be the difference. Your entire video could be better than mine. But if you didn't tell the viewer at the beginning, that could be the difference. And I can tell you with complete certainty, if the title of that video had been expensive chainsaw versus cheap chainsaw, it wouldn't have done 860,000 views. It might have done well, but it wouldn't have done what it did. And this is more art than science, and it's testing, and it's, if you're not getting results, you can go back and change it like we've talked about in other videos, but making sure that your title gets an emotional response from the viewer as often as possible goes a long way. Now I want to go a little bit deeper on that same concept, and that is that I started the video by telling the viewer what value I was going to provide. Well, that comes down to psychology and trying to understand the pain point that the viewer has. So as I'm thinking, I'm going to do a comparison on chainsaws. A lot of these channels, mine included, are frequently comparing really expensive chainsaws. So when I got access to a cheap chainsaw, I thought, how many of my viewers wants a chainsaw that can run a 25-inch bar, but they look at the prices on them and say, there's no way I'm spending that much money on a chainsaw. I guess I'll never have one. So I'm trying to get into the psychology of the viewer. And sometimes the problem that you're solving for them is very obvious, and sometimes it's not. So I actually have a framework I use that says, create a problem for the viewer so that you can solve it. And I actually went too far on this with a video recently. And this video's, I've done 150,000 views or something, but I was reviewing kind of a gimmicky ratchet strap. And I think it's a great product, but I went too far in creating a problem for the viewer. But I'm going to use it as an example. So I kind of used a marketing trick called FUD. That's an acronym for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So if you want to sell a product, you need to create fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the viewer or the customer. So let's say an example would be, I want to sell chainsaw chaps. I might come out of the gate and say, every year, 10,000 people have a leg injury from a chainsaw. That would be a pretty good example of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That I'm telling you, you should be a little bit afraid that if you don't have my product, you could get injured. A better version of that is to personalize it and say, about 12 years ago, I was out cutting and I didn't want to wear my chaps and I ended up in the hospital. If that's true, if you have a story like that. Now let's look at the worst alternative example of that. You say, do you have too much money in your bank account? Well, I know a surefire way to separate you from $112. Try our chaps. So the way you frame something is everything. So you've got to try to operate through psychology to say, what problem does this solve? And if you believe it solves a problem, before you present the solution, you need to present the problem. So in my ratchet strap video, I gave an example of a time that ratchet straps came loose on me and how dangerous that was, but I made it sound like it happens every time to everybody or happens every time to me, and that's just not the case. So I think I might have went too far with it, but I led that video off by saying, one time I had ratchet straps come loose. Somebody really could have got hurt. I wish I had had these better straps. So I'm hitting a lot of topics, and I might be bouncing all over the place. But what I want to get through to you is investing time before turning the camera on into thinking about the psychology of the viewer and what they care about. Now, I don't script my videos, but I feel like I've recorded the entire video in my head before I even go outside or turn on the camera. And what I mean by that is I'm going through and piecing together a story in my head where I think I'm telling myself, this is the introduction, and then this is the first action I show, and then I'm going to break in with this, and then I'm thinking about each thing I'm doing. How much footage of this thing do I need? How much footage of this thing do I need? What's the best footage going to be, and how many angles can I record it at? So you want to plan the whole video and feel like you've already watched the video before you record it. That makes recording a lot easier, so that you are recording what matters and you're not recording what doesn't. For some people, you might want to write that down. For me, I prefer to just have it in my mind. And I will say my intro 100 times in my head throughout the day before I go outside. Just over and over, what's the most valuable thing I can say in this video? Now, for the video you're watching right now, I recorded the intro like 20 times. And let me tell you why. Each time there was a real flaw with it that I could recognize. And I feel like the most important thing for this video was to tell you at the beginning that I thought it would provide value to you. So I came out of the gate and it's like, in this video, I'm going to show you some powerful tips to improve your YouTube channel. And if I couldn't get through that and a couple of other lines with perfect delivery, I'm doing it again. Now, most of my videos, everything's one take. Once I'm in the flow of something, I just go. But on the intro, I will sit here. I have literally recorded the same intro 100 times and spent an hour just saying the same thing over and over again because I didn't put the important thing in the beginning, or I said some things that really didn't fit the story. So you record it however many times it takes to get it right with the intro, because you're doing 90% of everything that matters to make the video, but not nailing the intro would be the 10% that makes the difference between winning and losing. Here's another meta example for this video right here. I had done a bunch of takes, and in each one, I didn't say something the way I wanted to say it, or I said something I shouldn't have, and I didn't get the wording just right. So I was getting a little bit annoyed with it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this intro again. And I got started, and I said, today I'm going to share with you some powerful tips that could help grow your YouTube channel. And I stopped before going to the next line, and I said, is this a zombie doing this intro? Who's going to want to watch that? You can't expect the audience to be more excited about your video than you are. How excited can you get for powerful tips without a little bit of energy? Whether you're low energy or not, man, you've got to put more energy into your video than you put into your everyday conversations, because the video format will flatten out everything you do a little bit. So you've got to step it up. You've got to get excited. And that's the last thing that I want to talk about is your energy. I call it getting in state, and that comes from Tony Robbins, world-renowned speaker, motivator, guru, whatever you want to call Tony Robbins. He's the best of the best. And he talks about his on-stage performances. He'll perform in front of 10,000, 50,000 people and speak for 8 hours. And the entire time he has to deliver for them, and he makes sure that he's always in peak physical, mental, and emotional state to do that. And he has a routine where he psychs himself up. He uses physical movement, like primal yells, whatever it takes. And so when I turn the camera on, I'm in peak state, and I have energy, and I'm ready to go. So I can be having the worst day ever. I've actually personally had a really bad week. A lot of things have gone wrong in my life, and I'm pretty upset with the county tax appraiser and blah, blah, blah. None of that matters unless that's what the video is about. If the video is about your YouTube channel, I can't bring my attitude from earlier in the week into this video. So I start off and I get myself into peak state, and it's like I turn the camera on and I just come alive. I have real excitement for the fact that the words I say right now could earn me a living. Think about that. And just maybe pop that into your head and say, talking to this camera right now could make me a bunch of money. That's exciting. And the way I tried to frame it in another video is to imagine that the best friend you ever had in your life is on the other end of the camera, and you haven't seen them in a long time. And this is your opportunity. I mean, I almost try to have an energy like, if I deliver this line right, I'm going to win the lottery or something. Like, I try to have real energy, not fake. But when I start a video, I just pop into state, and I truly get excited about what I'm doing. And that excitement can be felt by the viewers. I guarantee it. And for your YouTube channel to win, your viewers need to feel like they know you. Even if it's the first time watching, at the end of it, they need to feel like, I actually got to know that guy. Speaking of which, how are you going to get to know me if I don't tell you who I am? I always say my name after the intro, and I don't think I did it today. So this is Brock with Rock Hill Consulting, also Rock Hill Farm, Rock Hill Aquatics, and Rock Hill Unplugged. And I've made a lot of money by posting YouTube videos. If you'd like to learn how to do everything I've done and become a full-time YouTuber and turn your hobby into a career, make videos and get paid to talk about things you love, go to my website. Look at the 3 options we've got for how you can work with me. I'd love to work with you and try to help you grow your channel. You can also subscribe here to this channel. Hit the like button. I post tons of free content, just like what you just watched. The next time you turn the camera on, be in state. The number one thing I see from struggling creators is a disconnect emotionally from who they are and what they're doing in the video. A lot of times someone is way away from the camera. You can barely see what they look like. They have no energy and no delivery. That will kill your retention because people want to feel your energy and they will feed off your energy. So hopefully this video was helpful to you. I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.